The dinosaur park was really coming to its own by now. It had a vast array of different types of prehistoric creatures, both big and small. There were still many that had to see the light of day, many of which were highly anticipated by the potential audience, and speculations ran wild on what dinosaurs they would release next. The pens themselves were also filled with life, as it was a bustling theme of creature noises and roars. Investors that had been flown over to see the attractions were very enthusiastic. The Concavenator was a great addition to introduce the audience to a proper carnivore before spilling the beans with something majestic as a T-Rex or Spinosaurus. Yet they could not help but to think that some of the pens could use a bit more variety. The mixed pen, with the Iguanodon, the Oviraptor and the Compies, was already packed, but the Stegosaurus area was large enough to hold another type as long as it would not be a different herd. Some believed that a smaller type of the Stegosaurus family could be introduced, but others thought that the difference in size would diminish their appeal with the visitors. Instead, a different type would be introduced altogether that had no problem living amongst the gentle giants, and so the Ankylosaurus would be introduced here. A pair would be led into the pen to assure their own comfort as they could group up together, but the Ankylosaurus did not need this necessarily. The Ankylosaurus was slow, but better protected than the Stegosaurus. Unlike the Stegos, the Ankylosaurus could be very accurate with its tail swipe that could do devastating damage due to the club at the end of it. What was more is that the shell of the Ankylosaurus was better protected than the back of the Stego, with a hard layer and sharp spikes all around. If need be, the Ankylosaurus would dig in to where only its hard shell was in reach, making the Ankylosaurus kinda the hedgehog of the dinosaurs. Due to how close it was to the ground, made it to where this dinosaur was no runner, and thus it often would intermingle with other herd dinosaurs that were more attentive to predators. If they started to notice commotion, the Ankylosaurus could react to it in its own way. Yet in the past, they have shown signs of stress when put together with very hyperactive dinosaurs like the Gallimimus, so the slower and gentle Stegosaurus would be a great partner in this case. The rangers that went in to sedate these new dinosaurs had no problem getting the task done. An Ankylosaurus could do some serious damage to a car if it wanted to, but more often than not, it chose to dig in or just make a threatening pose rather than attack, often resulting in it falling asleep before anything could be done. The two dinosaurs would be moved to a pen that currently held 5 Stegosaurus, yet there was still enough space. Some were a bit worried about the stress levels of the ones already inhabiting the pen, but the overall procedure and transport went well. The Ankylosaurus were the ones who were a bit stressed in the beginning, running around in this new alien terrain for them. But it was indeed smart to put 2 in there, since they found comfort in each other, and it did not take long before they realized that the Stegosaurus in their new home did not mean no harm. In a matter of a few hours, the Ankylosaurus were accepted by the small Stegosaurus herd, and the 2 types of dinosaurs were drinking from the same watering spot and eating from the same feeding spot. Then, instead of focusing on new dinosaurs for the next part, it was time to focus on some new facilities. A few of the construction department thought it would be funny to put toilets in front of the Concavenator pen so that it would be the first thing the guests would see once they were done doing their business. At amusement parks, queues would often form in front of these facilities, So for the concavenator, it was as seeing all these snacks lined up properly for them to eat. But besides this, there would also be a bar built, as well as a gift shop. The bar would have a lounge that would overlook the carnivore pen, giving the guests something cool to look at while enjoying a nice beverage or snack. The scent of food would probably once again drive the predators a bit insane. But the overlooking bar also gave the construction crew an idea to build a tower to provide an even better view of the carnivores, as did it for the other pens, including the mixed pen and even the Stegosaurus and Ankylosaurus pen. By then it was finally time for a new dinosaur, and the shareholders and money spenders demanded something exotic, something flamboyant. Preferably another carnivore, but one that would stand on its own next to the concavenator. If possible, they would still hold the really big attractions for later, but that resulted in the scientists coming up with a very special dinosaur indeed for the next area. The next addition to the park was the so-called Yangchuanosaurus. What a name! This large and powerful predator made quite the impression with its large head and colorful pattern all over. In some ways, it even resembled more of a parrot-like pattern than the already colorful concavenator. The Yangchuanosaurus would be difficult to pronounce to some of the guests, but marketing managers already could see dollar signs by marketing the name to its fullest. You could have french fries and chicken nuggets in dinosaur shapes being served with the Yangchuana sauce, or have jokes and puns with the name printed on t-shirts. They would make the Yangchuanosaurus a star of the park, and the money holders could not be more pleased. The name alone had already the schwung they were looking for, and the look of the creatures was one to behold as well. Even though previously it was advised against a pair of carnivores, they wanted to try it again, but this time would give the two enough time to get acquainted in the holding cell before transportation to the pen. The area would be right opposite of the concavenator, but the Yangchuano was indeed different enough to where it stood on its own. In some ways, this new carnivore made more of an impression, and a lot of eyes were drawn to this area to see how they reacted to their new home. Unlike the concavenator, these two did not show any stress when they arrived in the pen. They mostly were hungry and thirsty from the sedation, and it took no time for them to get adjusted and showed healthy sightings of a good appetite. So the transportation was a huge success, and the pen was open and wide enough to where it displayed a good view of the two dinosaurs at all time. These now were the big attraction of the park, and as more and more dinosaurs would be introduced, the park would only grow more. Having some of these rare types being on display proved to be successful, so the money holders ordered the scientists to look if they could bring more rare types to life in order for the park to grow. Now, it did not mean that they would dismiss the guaranteed successes like a T-Rex, but it would definitely be pleasant to see how varied the park would be with life from another time.